Well, hi, welcome once again to Jump to It here on irishracing.com. Of course, we've been focusing on Royal Ascot all week, and it's now time to focus specifically on the Friday. What should be a scintillating day of action to go through the cards with me and provide their best bets. As always, I am joined by Stephen Harris and Vincent Vinegan. Great to see you again, then, gentlemen. Without further ado, we'll get stuck into the action. I think it's fair to say no one wants to hear me waffle on. At the 2:30, the Albany Stakes, Group 3 action for the fillies over the 6 furlongs. Now, in the build-up to this one, Stephen, Statuettes was all the rage for the Aidan O'Brien team. At literally the 11th hour, she's not been declared. Her stable companion, Meditate, his daughter, unbeaten daughter of No Nay Never, runs instead. How are you kind of summing this race up?
Well, at the time of recording, Ed, we've had the first day of Royal Ascot, and Aidan O'Brien's 2-year-old was disappointing in the Coventry, so that has to be a slight question mark as the merits. Obviously, he has a very strong hand. It's probably significant that Statuette has swerved this race. She looked absolutely top class in her debut. I do think the ground has to be a slight concern for Meditate, yielding and good ground so far in both wins. I really was taken by Morge, who made a winning debut for Saïd bin Surur at Newmarket a few weeks ago. She was thought to need the run quite badly, and it was likely to be an educational sighter. She'd been working okay at home, I think, but nothing spectacular, and they definitely thought she'd need the run. She was sent off 12-1, given a quiet introduction, shaken up 2 out, and absolutely took off, won by over 4 lengths, really impressing on fast ground. The form, well, the third's let it down, but the second's come out and won, so it's got a fairly solid look to it, and she could improve dramatically for that initial experience. The trainer doesn't have many runners or winners these days, but he's still got horses in reasonable form, 5 winners in the last 14 days, and I thought Morge, who's around about 4-1, was a fair price, probably not a huge betting race, lots of imponderables and unknowns here, but she did impress me when she made a winning debut.
Yes, good point you're making. The interesting one about Saïd bin Surur, he's almost the forgotten trainer in the ranks. It has to be said, almost with naturally the rise and success of Charlie Appleby, but specifically 2-year-olds for Saïd bin Surur wouldn't be the crop he'll be most associated with these days. You know, he's got to get a lot of the older horses which stay in training. So yeah, it could be significant. Ray Dawson on board, Saïd bin Surur's and Morge. Stephen says this daughter of Exceed and Excel absolutely scorched the turf when bolting up at Newmarket on debut. And yeah, the smaller and more select string aside bin Surur these days do tick over in nice form. So taking on the likely favourite from the Aidan O'Brien stable in the opener there. Right, we'll move on to the second race on the cards, the 305. Again, more speedsters on display here, Vincent, for the Commonwealth Cup. I really enjoyed this race. 20 due to go to post. Full of all sorts of horses. That's what I like about this race. You've got the out-and-out sprinters. You've got horses who tried a mile or tried to be turned into classic hopes, perhaps didn't make it, coming back down in distance. You've got horses reappearing, horses from the all-weather. This really is a melting pot of all sorts, and it should be really exciting.
It should, yeah. It looks a very good race. 20 runners as well. It's not going to be easy to pick a winner, but I do fancy one in this. I think Ger Lyons' Sacred Bridge. I think she's done very little wrong if you go through her form. She won her first 4 starts as a juvenile, and then she went and was beaten favourite in the Cheveley Park. She just ran flat that day. That's the only poor run she's had. She then ran in an Irish 1,000 guineas trial in Leopardstown where she finished an unlucky 4th to Homeless Songs, only beaten bits and pieces. And then she's won recently in Cork back in May, but that was her only subsequent start. I think this is her trip. 6 furlongs is her trip. Colin Keane on board. This, if she'd have stayed further and things had worked out for her, she would have been a classic contender. But I think 6 furlongs is the right trip. I think they're doing the right thing going here, and I think she could be very good. Definitely have an interest on her in the race. Obviously, this is a very good race. You've got the likes of Go Bears Go, which was a very good 2-year-old, won in Ireland as well as in the UK last year. Was unlucky in Haydock when it finished behind El Caballo. El Caballo is running up some sequence as well. So there's some very good horses in this. We've another Irish one in it, Twilight Jet, Michael O'Callaghan's, that won the Cornwallis last October and was an easy winner of a Group 3 at Naas on its comeback recently. That has to be a contender too. Very, very good race this.
Yeah, absolutely. And the all selection there, Sacred Bridge, around 25-1. So definitely speech-away value there for Ger Lyons, Colin Keane. Drawn in stall 3, his daughter of bated breath, if I remember rightly. Wasn't that Roger Charlton horse who absolutely loved quick ground? So yeah, you'd say conditions should be absolutely spot on for that one. I was with the favourite here, and originally thought Perfect Power just did not stay the trip over a mile in the Guineas. As simple as that. At the 2 furlong pole was going nicely in the hands of Christophe Soumillon, and then kind of fell in the hole to finish mid-division. We know this is an individual won the Middle Park, won the Pre-Morn, he won the Norfolk on this meeting 12 months ago over the 5. So having speed is clearly something that is in Perfect Power's locker. So yeah, interesting race, really exciting. That 305 there, the Commonwealth Cup. Right, the 340, the Duke of Edinburgh Stakes. A mile and a half here, handicap action. £51,000 to the winner. Another big field, Stephen, to contend with. 19 runners due to go to post. Fairly wide open look to it, I think it's fair to say. Well, the one for the money this week has been Majesty the Queen's runner, Just Fine, for Ryan Morton. So Michael Stout has been backed into favourite now. Are you with the market leader or against?
I respect his claims. Just Fine, as you say, is halved in price, and so's Trawler Man of John and Hayley Gosden. They've been the two for money. I like Contact here of David and Nicola Barron. Now, this one has run 14 times, but he's never been better. He's come back this season absolutely thriving. When he won one start back, I was really taken with the performance at Newmarket. He fell out the stalls and came from last to first, hitting the front 3 furlongs out and doing well to win. He's got a terrific engine, this horse, and he did very similar at Haydock. They dropped him out and he pulled really hard for the first sort of 4 furlongs, made rapid headway, hit the front over 2 furlongs out, and you thought, well, he's the sort of horse, he's done so much too soon almost, he's bound to get picked off, but he battled on really well. So he's ended up sort of winning narrowly and inching up the weights rather than getting walloped. And I think he's the sort of handicapper in a better race, a bigger field, a stronger pace. They'll be able to give him a more even and well-paced, thought-out ride from rear. Ben Curtis up again, obviously knows him well. He goes really well on firm ground. I remember him winning at Pontefract last season. He absolutely hosed up. Obviously, that was in a completely different level of race to this one, but obviously fast ground suits him ideally. I think he'll be at least 10 to 1. Extra places, I think he's bound to run well. He has got a high draw, which I'm not sure that's ideal in these kind of races, but in his case, he'll be dropped out and ridden patiently, so hopefully it won't matter. Obviously, you're going to need luck to get a run, but you're going to get 10 or 12 to 1 your money.
Yeah, absolutely. Good point you make regarding the ground. Just looking at the horse's career wins, 5 of them have all come with a combination of good or good to firm in the going description. Whenever the word soft's been around, the wheels have come off. So conditions should be absolutely spot on for Contact. And as Stephen says, do shop around. You can kind of get 17 to 2, 8 to 1 there or thereabouts. But check all your bookmakers' offers. I said they'll be offering 4 or 5 places. There were a few on the opening day at Royal Ascot, weren't they? In the build-up, suddenly throwing in a mystery 7 or 8 for certain stakes in terms of your places as well. So do shop around. There's plenty of value to be had there. Right, on to the 420, the Coronation Stakes. Group 1 action here for the fillies. Really looking forward to this, albeit with the slight caveat. The Gloss, to some extent, Vincent, has been taken off this one, hasn't it? With no longer Homeless Songs lining up, who looked, let's face it, absolute superstar when running away with the Irish 1,000 guineas. Nonetheless, we do have the champion 2-year-old unbeaten filly in Spiral making the gig with Cachet, of course, who won the English 1,000 guineas and went down very narrowly in France last time out. It's still a very, very good contest on paper.
Oh, it's a cracking race. Absolutely fabulous race. It's just an awful pity Homeless Songs isn't here too. Homeless Songs for me is the most exciting horse in training at the minute. I can't wait to see her. I thought we'd see her here. She's very delicate is the first thing, but on top of that, he wasn't going to risk her on this ground, I presume, is the obvious thing. When you look at the race, this is an absolute cracker. You've got Cachet, which won the English Guineas, as you say, narrowly beaten in the French by Mangosteen, which runs here as well. There was only a head in it between them that day in France. That was on softish ground. Cachet had already won the Guineas on quick ground. So for me, Cachet is the most likely winner here. In Spiral, obviously champion 2-year-old filly last year. But having said that, she's had setbacks and we don't know for definite has she trained on. And until we see her, it's very difficult to back something that's going to be a short price favourite against this level of opposition, because these are very, very good. You've got some quality all the way through this race, including the likes of Tenebrism. Now, I'm a little surprised that runs here, to be honest with you. Tenebrism looks a sprinter. It's by Caravaggio. Looked a sprinter last year, came and didn't stay in the Guineas. So now they're having another go at this. That for me now would be a lay, if it depending on where you were going. I wouldn't be putting it in combination, forecast, tricast, anything. I couldn't see that being involved myself. But having said that, it's obviously still a high class horse here. And then the other Irish one in it, Discovery's beaten less than 5 lengths in Newmarket, could come on for the run. That was the first run of the season as well. Sometimes these horses do come on from a run. It certainly looked like it had trained on. It just weakened in the last furlong in Newmarket. So Discoveries could run well at a price. But for me, Cachet looks the value, certainly to take on Innsbruck.
Yeah, George Bowie, of course, had a wonderful start to his training career, hasn't he? Only had his licence 3 years, already banged in a classic winner, Royal Ascot winner with the same horse, would go down pretty nicely, I think it's fair to say. And I totally agree with you, Vincent, in regards to Tenebrism. I think we said in the Monday review show after the 2000 Guineas, just shaped like a total non-stayer, looked all speed, fascinating that they decide to have another crack at this one. Maybe there'll be different tactics and they'll try and come with a late rattle. But as you say, on the evidence we've seen so far, Tenebrism looks a bit more of a sprinter. Stephen, is Spiral making the market here? This is a baptism of fire for a return, isn't it? John Gosden's been patient with her, said, a couple of niggly problems. He didn't want to get her out too soon. When she's right, she'll be on the track. So by that logic, he's clearly got full confidence in her.
Yeah, you'd have to be concerned. There's definitely been issues, haven't there? We've only sort of had them leaked out at the last minute through various sources to find out she wasn't going to run, and she's missed a couple of engagements, obviously. You'd have to say the market will probably guide her. She's around about 2-1 at the moment. If she's sort of 6-4 popping on and they've got her A1, on the impression she created as a juvenile, you think, well, she could be top class and be a lot better than these. I suspect the others are much of a muchness. I've gone for Prosperous Voyage, who's a double-figure price. Rafe Beckett, absolutely flying at the minute. I think he's had 5 winners in the last 14 days. And I thought in the 1,000 Guineas, she was, I'm not saying she'd have beaten Cachet, but she absolutely flew her home to challenge. And Cachet did rather get the run of the race on the lead there. I thought Prosperous Voyage, who's twice the price of Cachet, is almost the same horse and hasn't had a hard race in France since. She's been kept fresh for this since the Guineas, whereas Cachet was carried out on her sword over in France, had a very hard race, taken on for the lead a long way out there. So at the prices, I thought Prosperous Voyage was the one to side with it. It's a fascinating race, this. It'll be very interesting. I mean, if there are negative stories about Inspiral, she could end up being 3-1, 7-2. The race could look completely different if the stable vibes are not strong for her. So I thought Prosperous Voyage, perhaps each way at around 10-1 was the way to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Each way played Rob Hornby, Rafe Beckett teaming up. Prosperous Voyage in a race, as we say. Got the English and the French Guineas winners. Despite Home the Songs not being there, this still race really has the X factor with the unbeaten Inspiral, the daughter of Frankel, returning to the track. Be a lot of eyes, as Stephen says. Keep your eyes on the market there with that Cheveley Park representative. Been lots of negative vibes, but now this is kind of D-Day for her. To use Vincent's words, has she trained on? So we will see. Not for me at 2-1, not the type of risk I'd like to take, but nonetheless will be a fascinating watch. On to the 5 o'clock. The Sandringham Stakes is on our cards now. Right, Stephen, we'll stick with you for this one. Heredia is into market leader here. At best price 6-1 at the time of recording, and then a whole host of individuals with claims in this 29 runner strong field. What's your view on this race?
Yeah, obviously a very hard race, and again, you want extra places with all a million runners. Mine's drawn 5, which I think is a good draw. Fresh Hope of Charlie Fellows. Now, Hayley Turner's on this one, and she's got a brilliant record. This is her race, the Sandringham, basically, and Charlie Fellows has as well. And this one was a real eye-catcher under Spencer when finishing 3rd at Wetherby. I mean, eye-catcher's one way of putting it. Basically, she was 7-4 on. Spencer thought she was an absolute certainty, sat there cruising, and then panic stations a furlong out, immediate overdrive, and just got picked off by a couple. It wasn't a wonderful ride. He made amends at Doncaster, as usual, dropped out stone last, which is what Jamie Spencer does on 90% of his rides. And this filly had enough ability to get him out of trouble and win on the nod. Very well backed. Loads more to come. Interesting that Hayley replaces Jamie for this big handicap. But I think Fresh Hope, who's inched up only a few pounds to 82 as a result of that winning handicap debut, has got loads more potential, will love a big field. Hopefully Hayley, drawn 5, get a good pitch over on that far rail and I think she will go really close. 10-1, 12-1 for Looking. Extra
Yeah.
places again. I think bound to run well.
Yeah, indeed. 12-1 best price at the moment. If you want the 4 places, there are a few firms going slightly shorter, but up to 6 places as well. So keep your eyes on those concessions. That is fresh hope for the combination of Charlie Fellows and Hayley Turner in the Sandringham at 5 o'clock. On to the 5:35, the King Edward 7th Stakes here. Group 2 action over the mile and a half. Now changing the guard is your market leader, or fine for favouritism, shall we say, alongside Ottoman Fleet for the team in blue, William Buick and Charlie Appleby. Then got Lysander, Grand Alliance, Savvy Victory, Dark Moon Rising, complete the sextet due to go to post here. Vincent, changing the guard. I mean, what do we make of this horse? It's a fairly quick turnaround from Epsom. Didn't run badly, in my view, with 5th behind Desert Crown, but in some ways, this feels a bit of an afterthought.
I'd say it is, yeah. I'd say it often is. This particular race, it's for the also rans and the Derby is what often run it and win it. Changing the guard, it's a weak renewal. That's the first thing I think it is anyway. We may be proved wrong in time, but at the moment it looks like a weak renewal. Changing the guard had run well and won well. First 2 starts of the season at Dundalk and Chester, and then it's a decent enough run in the Derby, finishing 5th. It's well beaten now, in fairness, but it's a decent enough run. It should win here, because if you take the Chester run, it beats a horse which is in the race here called Savvy Victory. It was beaten 12.5 lengths by Changing the Guard in Chester. Savvy Victory then comes out and finishes 3rd again to Ottoman Fleet, but is only beaten less than 2 lengths in Newmarket. So if you take it that Ottoman Fleet is vying for favouritism here with Changing the Guard, but on a strict line of form through this Savvy Victory, Changing the Guard probably has the guts of 10 lengths in hand, if that's right. So even if it doesn't have 10 lengths in hand, it only needs to have a short head in hand to collect. I would have thought Changing the Guard is the value here. I think some of the others in this don't look good enough. Savvy Victory certainly isn't. Haven't been beaten by the 2 principals before. Grand Alliance is another one, was a good bit back in the Derby as well, was a long way behind. I have to try to think how far that was. I think it's about 7 lengths behind Changing the Guard in the Derby. So it's hard to see that turn their form around either. If Changing the Guard runs as it has done so far this season, it should beat these.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. The best form on offer. I'm just slightly nervous about the relatively quick turnaround. What we are 11 or 12 days later, or there or thereabouts. So I took that horse on with Lysander, William Haggis and Tom Marquand, who wasn't disgraced at all when finishing 3rd in a listed event at Goodwood last time out over mile 3. Up another furlong here. Just looks an out-and-out galloper to me. So I thought, if for whatever reason Changing the Guard was feeling the effects of Epsom, that William Haggis representative would be the one most likely to cash in. On to the finale, the lucky last. This really is the ultimate get-out-of-jail stakes, isn't it? Good luck with this one. This is great fun. 31 runners. I wonder if people will just throw in the towel here and start making their way to the train station. Maybe that would be a wise thing to do. I know train fares are through the roof at the moment, but probably cheaper than throwing your money away in this one. Or do you have the opposite view here, Stephen? Is there a cast iron certainty from the Harris household?
I wouldn't call it a certainty, Ed, but I thought Corker, Carl Burke stable, I really like, having a fantastic time of things. He's had 6 winners in the last fortnight. They're all flying. I think the clue here is a lot of people are going to dismiss Corker because he's gone up £9 in one hit for winning that York handicap last time out. But it was a really impressive display at York. Not many horses come from that far back in such style. And I thought he probably merited. I mean, they'll probably be gutted he didn't get 5 or 6. 9 does seem a bit extreme, but he's thriving. He goes on fast ground. The stable's flying. He's a hold-up sprinter. I like those at Ascot. They go for home far too soon, relatively speaking. I know it's a funny thing to say in a 5-furlong sprint, but there's a horse here of Wesley Ward's called Ruthin, who, if you watch the run back of his win in America 63 days ago, he looks like an absolute early-paced lunatic, which of course all of Wesley Ward's are. I think he'll be 6th clear. Now he's drawn 17 and Corker is drawn 24, which I think is a massive plus for Corker's chance, because they're going to go probably very, very fast on that side, and Corker can just sit off the pace and have a one to aim at. And I think each way, 10-1, very fair price. Again, you want extra places, Ed. It's a horrendously bookmaker-friendly race with the traditional terms, but I did think Corker was the one to go with.
Yeah, it will be an absolute corker if that one comes in, won't it, Stephen? What are you going to do? You're going to fire at the barbecue again? If this one wins. I saw some wonderful shots from your backyard the other day. Look, you're having a lovely time. Are you celebrating the winners? Were you? Is that the way you're going?
Well, a bit, but I mean, it's so hot, isn't it? I don't know what about up in Cheltenham. Maybe it's a little bit cooler. And Vincent's
No,
probably
it's
in
warm.
Ireland somewhere. It's about 12 degrees, scraping the frost off his windows. But it's actually 30 degrees here. I mean, it's like being in the tropics. You know, it's absolutely boiling. I mean, I sort of go out and sit in the garden and watch the last few races from Royal Ascot on my phone and sort of skulk out there about 4 o'clock, try and sit under a tree somewhere.
Absolutely, yeah. Why not? As I say, it's cold for about 8 months a year, and we moan. Then it comes hot, and then we all moan. That seems to be
Yeah, that's
the
it.
mentality. The mentality. Vincent would know anything about that. Well, I suppose you'd be pretty good, well positioned to say that, Vincent. After a few weeks on the east coast of Spain, yeah. As I say, it seems to be holding up all right in Ireland, though. Nice weather where you are.
Yeah, since I've come home, it's improved. It rained for the whole 2 weeks I was away, but as soon as I've come back, it's dry. They must
Perfect.
know I need to cut the grass. That's the bottom line. So
Absolutely.
that's the plan for this afternoon, this evening at some stage. Hopefully, we'll do it after Ascot, but we'll see how we get on. Might have to start a little bit earlier because it's very high.
Fantastic. Right, before you go and mow the lawn, before Stephen fires at the barbecue again, let's just nail our colours to the mast for our best bets on the Friday at Royal Ascot. Stephen, can you kick us off, please?
Yeah, my three, the 305, Go Bears Go in that valuable sprint. I thought he was so unlucky at Haydock. He fell over out the stalls and absolutely flew home. I know you might be getting tricked a bit. People talk about late headway monkeys and things, don't they? But he was an unlucky loser. I think he'll reverse the form with El Caballo. He's already done it on fast ground at Ascot, albeit in a forerunner race first time out. And I think there's more to come. Really like David Loughnane. He's about 8 or 10 to 1. Fair price. The 340 Contact has won his last two. He's not going to be any secret, but he's sort of done it in spite of himself, pulling hard and too much too soon in the middle of both those handicaps. I think he'll be suited by a huge field, stronger pace, and he'll go well at around 12 to 1. And my long shot was in the 420, quite keen to be against Inspiral. And I thought Prosperous Voyage, who's a double figure price, ran so well in the Guineas, and people have sort of forgotten about that. And she's double the price of Cachet, and I think she might reverse the form with that one.
Indeed, some value selections from Stephen there on the cards. Vincent, where are we going with you?
Okay, for a long shot, I'm going to go for the first race, the Albany. One of Simon Crisford's here called Beautiful Ashley. This has a definite chance. This is stepping up to 6 furlongs. It's run twice. It's been beaten both times, finished second each time, but it has flashed home over 5. I think the extra furlong is a big plus here. Simon Crisford doesn't run very many horses at this meeting. He's only got a few entered during the week. He only runs his best. He's a pretty good strike rate. I'd be expecting this to run very well at double figure odds. Another value bet is in the 305, which is Sacred Bridge, which I talked about already in that Commonwealth Cup. I think this Ger Lyons trained filly, very, very good. Can't be far away. If she produces her best, I think she'll win, and that's it. And she is a big price, so definitely worth an interest there. And then Cachet in the big one, in the Coronation Stakes. I think it's classic form, and I think in Spiral, you have to have a little question mark about it. Probably Goslin has the horse perfect, but at the same time, I'm thinking Cachet, classic winner, not beaten far in France on slightly softer ground. Coming back here on quick ground, I think Cachet will be thereabouts.
Absolutely, yes. Very solid profile, Cachet, for the flag bearer for the George Bowie team, it has to be said. That is Vincent's selections very quickly for mine. I'm taking Vincent on in the Commonwealth Cup. I'm with Perfect Power there for Christophe Simeon and Richard Fahy. Just don't think the horse stays a mile. Straightforward as that. Back into sprint trips. I think this Middle Park pre-morning winner will be very happy back at 6. Lysander, I like it at 5:35, just changing the guard. I'm worried about the change of the guard in the sense that horse is back out quickly after finishing 5th in the Derby. Lysander comes in here after a fresh preparation and would be the selection for me for the William Haggis team. And then in the 6:10, in the Get Out of Jail Stakes, I got for Nibfedora there for Andrew Balding, who's been amongst the winners, been in the winners' enclosure this week at Royal Ascot. The young man, Harry Davis, on board, claiming the 5. Horse ran a real eye-catching run, I thought, when runner-up at Chester last time out, despite not quite getting the rubber degree. That was that horse's first run for 7 months. should strip a lot fitter for that outing. Well, my thanks to you, both Stephen and Vincent, and many thanks for you for watching at home as well. It's been a great show, lots to look forward to on the track, and of course, don't forget to keep checking out all the latest news and features on irishracing.com and all of Stephen's tips on bettingexpert.com. If you do like to have a bet, of course, please do gamble responsibly. Thanks once again for watching. Keep your eyes peeled. There'll be a Saturday Royal Ascot preview show on the way. We'll see you again soon. Bye for now.